If you're new to our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
Hello, I'm Robert Scott Bell, the voice of health, freedom, and healing liberty. Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show with your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
Holly, let's go to the IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Grower Hotline and bring in our guest.
Barbara Pleasant is a contributing editor to Mother Earth News and Mother Earth Living magazines, author of books to help gardeners grow along with their gardens, and a lecturer to garden club shows, botanical gardens, master gardener organizations, and more. She's also the author of the book Homegrown Pantry, which is her most recent book. Welcome to the program, Barbara.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us on the program and educate not only Holly and myself, but all of our listeners as well.
Well, it started raining, so I can't hill up potatoes.
Well, we like to can our potatoes, but many people don't. What is the best way to have long-term potato storage without canning them?
Well, you know, a lot of people just don't like pressure canning. It scares them. And potatoes will store in a cool, dark place for a long time, and most people don't grow all that many. But now, there are those potatoes that get sliced with a shovel or speared with a fork while you're harvesting, you know, the ones that you would declare culls that are damaged. You know, I bake those and then either shred them for hash browns or slice them into slices once they're cooked and then dehydrate those so that making hash browns is just a matter of putting hot water in with the dried shredded potatoes and frying them in a nonstick skillet for a minute, and they're ready. So it's really you make convenience food that way. Okay.
That's a really good tip. Actually, I never thought about doing that. Now, you make a low sugar jam using Pomona pectin. It's kind of a unique jam. Does it taste good? How do you do it? Tell us more about that.
Well, the procedure using Pomona pectin, which is a calcium activated pectin, is a little different from using, for example, Sure Gel, where you just put it in all at once. And in the traditional way, you can taste along to see how sweet it tastes, but to get what a friend of mine calls a high gel rate, you need a lot of sugar. And so Pomona pectin, the most similar thing I can describe is it works more like a gelatin. And you learn through experience. See, there's some guesswork involved because you put the sugar in at the end. So you brought your juice to a boil and put in some sugar, but you mix the pectin with the sugar and dump it all in at once. But you end up with a jam or a preserve with maybe half the sugar. And one of the things about making jams is you quickly learn that you don't need all that many jars. It's not like we eat jam 3 times a day. And it's easy to put up too much.
Yeah, I agree. I did that when I first started making jam and was really successful with it. And then I was just giving it away. Please take my jam. Now, you make an onion jam. Can you tell us about the onion jam? I've never had that.
Onion jam is wonderful. One year, for unexplained reasons, I had a lot of damage from onion root maggots, which are little fly larvae that tunnel into the onion, and you can't store them. They're, the damage is on the outside of the onion, but you have to go ahead and use them up. And so, I don't really care for dehydrated onions too much. So I ended up making an onion jam, which has both vinegar and sugar in it. And it became the basis for salad dressings and sauces, and it was so handy to have around. I hope to make some more this year, but I don't want to wish a pest problem on myself.
Yeah, onion jams, it doesn't sound appealing, but I guess it's one of those things you can't judge it until you've tried it.
But when I've taken it with me, when I've given talks and put out crackers and onion jam, people love it. And I believe that in France it's much more common than it is here.
Interesting. We grow, what we're getting here in the upper Midwest portions of the United States, getting ready to plant our winter squash. We like the Jardel pumpkin. What are some winter squashes that you would recommend for good long-term storage?
Well, the great thing about the Jardale pumpkin is that the seeds are probably the plumpest of all the seeds. If you wanted a pumpkin that had not as big as, what we call pepitas or edible onion seeds, edible pumpkin seeds, but still big and fat, the Jardale is great for that. Now, the one that I think it's interesting that both of us, when we say winter squash, but what we are going to choose to grow our pumpkins, you're going to grow Jardale, and I'm going to grow Long Island cheese, which is the same species as butternut squash, Cucurbita moschata, and because of that, it does not get squash fine borers. And I really like the flavor and the keeping quality of the Long Island cheese pumpkin. So that's the one that I always recommend. It's my favorite. Now, several years ago, it's been a long time, I did an article for Mother Earth News on the best squash for pies. And when I hit the mid, you go around and try to get regional sources, so you get different perspectives on what's the best, squash for pie. And I heard about buttercups, and of course had to grow them myself. And I have to say, a good buttercup makes the best pie. So I always have to put that one on the list too.
That's definitely something that we might have to look into. We're talking with Barbara Pleasant, author, editor, lecturer, and more. What are some good hedge plants that you could grow that will deter deer? Deer are a problem for a lot of people. What are some plants that you can plant along your garden that will make the deer not want to be as attracted to your beautiful garden?
Your deer are so big, too. It's like the further north you go, the bigger the deer get. I have a lot of deer pressure here, and I've made the mistake in the past of mowing paths from the woods straight to the garden. So it was the opposite of a detour. I put in a highway for the deer. That was a big mistake. Now, a deep thicket of blackberries and raspberries and brambly things will often deter them because they won't jump over something more than 12 feet, kind of deep. But that's a lot of real estate to put into a deer deterrent barrier. One of the plants I'm working with that may work out is English basketry willows, little willow trees that can be planted very close together and become very dense, but that's just a special project. I don't know. One of the things I do in my garden, because deer incursion is going to happen, I live on the edge of the Blue Ridge Parkway National Park where there's no hunting, and we have resident deer and passers through, is I never plant deer candy along the edge of the garden. Deer candy would be beans, peas, and I have quit growing I know you don't grow sweet potatoes, but they would rather have sweet potatoes than anything. So, and all along the edge of the garden are herbs, which they never touch. And I never have them bother cucumber crops or squash. And so over the years, I think my summer garden has evolved to be more vegetables that deer just don't care for, and fewer vegetables that they love.
So basically, don't invite them in by cutting paths is the number one rule, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't recommend doing that. I realized what I'd done, and I went, oh, how dumb, the human minds. That's because I wanted to walk.
Right, and that's the thing, yes.
That way, and so I invited the deer to come on in, girls, and I had a lot of damage. But still, just because I don't know when they're going to come, and they're going to come at night, and the second half of summer is when I'm going to have problems. Like, I grow bush beans rather than pole beans because I can cover them with row cover overnight. Just spread out a row cover over the planting, and if they can't see it, they won't eat it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about some problems that people do whenever they store their produce. There's some wrong ways that people store produce. What are some of the common ones that you look at and go, that's not right at all, in a kind way?
Oh, I have looked at salsas that were under processed so that the tomato seeds in the salsas were actually sprouting. So that's kind of spooky, which means that it didn't even get to 130 degrees Fahrenheit in those jars. They were under-processed. Well, one of I don't think gardeners mean to take shortcuts, but maybe they get in a hurry right at the end. And so I think under-processing with water bath is one of the things I've seen. I know for many years my freezer vegetables didn't turn out the way I liked, and I got a vacuum sealer, less than $50 that sucks the air out of the freezer bag. And the quality of the snap peas is so much better, and the quality of the green beans is so much better, that I really think if you're going to be serious about, blanching and freezing a quantity of vegetables, and I am, investing in an inexpensive vacuum sealer is a good idea.
Well, and that's the thing. Holly does a basics of canning presentation, and that's one thing. You can take a lot of shortcuts in gardening and growing, but processing food is one thing that you cannot take shortcuts and expect to have good results or a healthy end to that.
Yeah, and it's not that hard to do things right.
Yeah.
And so as a gardener, you put all this time into growing the crop, and then to, get impatient at the end, it's just something you don't want to do.
Yeah, I completely understand. So how can we find out more about you and your books and all your great information?
Well, I'm easy. BarbaraPleasant.com has lots of information about me, and I have some pages about plants that I really like and stuff like that. And then as for my books, I have several, and if you go to Amazon just with my name, it'll pop them all up, or you can go to your local bookstore or library. One of my tests of whether or not I want a book is when I've renewed it twice from the library, I need to buy it.
Good observation there. Well, we greatly appreciate Barbara for coming on the program and sharing your knowledge with Holly, myself, and all of our listeners.
Well, thanks, and I hope you have a wonderful season.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.